So, welcome to another episode of Morning Coffee with me, Professor Alex. Still got that stuffy nose. Um, 99% of my videos, my blog, are always going to focus on financial issues. Sometimes I have to get a little off topic, like I'm going to do today. And it's just because there's certain things that I cannot ignore. And so, I talk about the recession, the Trump tariffs, I talk about all those issues, but there are times that I'm like, okay, I can't ignore this one. And this is the issue of people coming back into the country, went on vacation. I've seen a couple times already. It's from the Dominican Republic. And then ICE is taking away their cell phones. Now, this applies to lawyers and non lawyers. And this is what the issues are. First, let's start off with lawyers. Lawyers have to protect their client confidentiality, right? What we call work product. If you violate that, a lawyer would just simply get sanctioned, could get disbarred. So we have to protect that. So even lawyers have to be careful if they're using like a cloud service, the cloud gets hacked, etc. Now, when you cross the, if you're coming from spring break now from Santo Domingo and they come in and ICE is stopping them and they're asking all these questions and you put them in a room and they're interrogating them for hours. There was one situation where they were telling the lawyer, just give us the data. I mean, think about what I just said. Give us the data or the information that's not work product. And it's like how many emails we have going back with clients, maybe lengthy emails, short emails, or we have access to the cloud on our phones so they can access that. And so the whole thing is ridiculous because that's not the way that it's done. You get a court order to get that information. Now, I've been there. I had a friend who was concerned about, he almost got ripped off buying a car, and it was an antique. So I said, just put the money in my trust account, and when the deal is closed, then I'll release the funds. That's the easiest way to do it. But I told him, don't deposit all this cash at once. So he started depositing almost every day. And of course, I think that's called structuring. So the bank called me and said, who's this person making these deposits? And I said, well, you got the camera video, figure it out. He says, well, we need to know his name and stuff like that. And I said, no, sorry, it doesn't work that way. Go get a court order. I'll comply with the court order. I'm not releasing my client's information. So guess what? Nothing happened because that's just the way that it works with attorney-client privilege. Now, what happens to those lawyers that do comply? They say, well, I've been here forever. This is going to end. They're keeping me here already for 4 or 5 hours. Let me give them the client data. Well, okay, they complied and they could face sanctions from the bar. What if they don't comply? Then they're probably going to get arrested. And if they don't get arrested, what happens? State bar sanctions them. So if you don't comply and you protect your client's data, you get sanctioned by the bar. If you get arrested because you say, no, I'm not going to do that, the law protects me, and they arrest you anyway, you're going to get sanctioned by the bar. Now, every bar is different. Florida typically just suspends the lawyer automatically. And then what lawyers do is they file an appeal with the state Supreme Court to buy more time. Other states, I think, just stick around and wait to see what happens with the case, which I think makes more sense. But one issue with that is I'm very disappointed with the state bars because I haven't seen them come out and say anything. I haven't seen them complain. I haven't seen them give guidance. I haven't seen them file lawsuits. The whole point of the state bar is to handle things like that, and they haven't handled it. So that's my main concern, at least with lawyers. They put us in a position that what do? You get screwed one way or another. Now, let's talk about non lawyers. I mentioned this about a month ago that some Italian tourists had said that they were told to basically scrub your phones. And I think now Canadians are being told the same thing. You come to the US, scrub your phone. Don't have anything there anti-Trump or whatever. Just the other day, my wife met a US citizen who scrubbed her phone. She was going back to Canada and she was concerned. And she was scrubbing her phone way before she went to Canada because she was just excuse me. She was just concerned if something happens, they look at her phone, what is that going to lead to? So that's the issue now. Where does this put you? Well, first place, if you're leaving the country, you could just simply leave your cell phone behind, right? That's a tough one, right? Because our whole life is in there. I guess you could ship your cell phone to you. That's also possible. Hopefully, it gets there on time. If it's a far trip, then who knows when the phone's going to get there. So maybe just leave your phone here and buy a burner phone over there. The other option is you can just leave your cell phone while you're at, basically get rid of it, and then when you come back, get a new phone. All those photos, everything else is saved, and you get a new phone. You got to pay for the deductible, or you got to pay for the new phone. Right now, you could, and again, just depending on the distance, because I've seen at least twice. It's been two lawyers. One was an immigration attorney, and the other one, actually, no, the other one was representing a high profile client who's having immigration issues. And the other one's a lawyer born in the US who does real estate. So, they just seem to be targeting lawyers. They have to be going through the list to see, who's on the list flying into the country today. I'm not even going to get into that issue. Um, the other answer is, just say you're in a Dominican Republic or whatever other country and you're coming back. You can just simply send it back to yourself. It should be here in a day or two, hopefully, right? Can't say leaving your suitcase and stuff like that because they'll probably go through your suitcase. Um, but that's where we are. We're now trying to figure out: do we take our cell phone? Do we take it? What do we take a burner? Do we send it back? Obviously scrub everything. Scrub your phone if when you're coming back, or when you're leaving, they don't care. But when you're coming back, that's where we are, where you can't literally have negative messages about our government. Now, being Cuban, born and raised in Miami, so US citizen but Cuban parents, so let's just say Cuban American, like we like to say. I remember a country like that. My parents told me about it. It was called Cuba and Fidel Castro. This is like, again, I've said before, there's some things that shock me and other things like, I expected that one. I really expected all these tariff issues and all the consequences. I didn't expect them to be going through, if anybody's cell phone, a lawyer's cell phone once you're entering the country. That is scary. But that is the whole point, right? Just scare the hell out of us. So, we become submissive. So keep that in mind. You got to do what you got to do to protect yourself. Figure out your situation. If there's one thing I have been saying in my blogs when it comes to the financial aspects of everything, your situation is unique. So figure out your situation and work from there. All right? Stay safe, stay informed. Take care, everybody.